All right, welcome insiders. My name is Stacy Allen, veteran coach at VA Claims Insider, and today I have Dr. Christine Erickson with us. And she's going to be filling us in on some things that we can expect at our C&P exam for audiology reasons. So, Dr. Erickson, thank you so much for joining us. And can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, thank you. I appreciate you having me on here, and I'm looking forward to the opportunity to hopefully help some veterans along in their process. I've done audiology for 20 years. I am the wife of a veteran. Had no idea what service connection was until my husband was injured in service, and this whole world opened up to me. Have been doing claims since 2007, first at the VA itself, and then in a private practice setting once the VA contracted those exams out. So that's been where I'm at. Comp and Pen is my world. We're a military family, like I said, and looking forward to hopefully helping out our veterans with navigating some of the questions they would normally have in this process.
Great. Well, again, thank you so much for taking the time to do this and sharing with the veterans out there. I'm sure that this is going to be a tremendous help for them. So let's just dive right into it. I've got a list of questions that I'm going to throw at you. Hopefully, no curveballs. So how do you view outside evidence?
So when a veteran comes into an exam and they have outside evidence that they are wanting presented for their claim, first off, I should back up. Typically, we would like them to give that to their service officer so that it's scanned into their record before they even come in. Then we have the proper amount of time before we even see the veteran to look at the information and be able to see what it is that they're going to come in wanting to talk about. If that can't happen, or if they feel more comfortable bringing it in, we certainly go through any outside information, usually if they can make copies to leave with us that we can look at later. If it's not scanned in the file, that's very helpful as well. The weight of outside evidence as far as substantiating a claim is not as much as what's in their service records. So depending on what type of outside evidence it is and who it's from and what it's about, it makes a difference in how it's viewed or how it helps their claim.
All right, well, great. So you mentioned that it is helpful to have that stuff scanned in prior to, so you can kind of see what's going on with the vet before they even get there.
Yeah.
So that's a great piece of advice.
Mm-hmm.
So how should one go about explaining their disability to you without getting frustrated? I know as a fellow disabled vet, I don't know, we have a tendency to have a short fuse sometime, and trying to get our point across, we do tend to get frustrated somewhat easily. So how can we best do that?
Well, and that's a hard one too, because, and this is something I am big into advocating about on the VA side of things. A lot of times when you're coming into a Comp and Pen exam, your examiner does not have a strong military background. So not only are you explaining a complicated injury where there's sometimes, mental health things with it, and you're already, like you said, coming in frustrated. But on top of that, for example, some of the VAs use residents to do their claims exams. And you've got a young resident who doesn't know the military culture, who doesn't know the lingo, who doesn't know the terminology. And you're up against two, obstacles in that circumstance. So I would say the biggest thing is to come in prepared to explain your injury or the circumstances like you're talking to someone that has never, ever heard of anything in the military. Don't come in expecting it to be like you're seeing a military doctor who understands immediately where you're at. And sometimes you'll get that, but come in expecting the opposite. Come in expecting to explain in great detail what your MOS is, what your injury is, what your combat noise exposure is like, because unfortunately, a lot of the examiners don't have that understanding. And if you have that perspective coming in, it can often make it less frustrating for you because you just have a lower expectation from the start.
That's great advice. And we do that. We tend to, because that's the world we lived in. So we expect
Correct.
everybody to understand that, but you don't.
Mm-hmm.
You don't. So that's great advice. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So what does a C&P examiner look for when going into an exam with a vet?
Well, I can speak for myself personally on this one, obviously, not for other people. When For me, when I see a veteran, before I've seen them, I've gone through their entire case history. Anything that the contract companies have provided, I have gone through it all. I've researched it all. I've looked into anything, any of the outside information that's been loaded into their file. When they come in, we definitely love to see our veterans on time. That's a big one.
Yeah.
If you have to go potty, if you don't know if you're coming into a big town, leave extra time. They schedule, at least in my world, they schedule us super tight. And if someone's late, it throws you off right away. And our veterans makes them more nervous and anxious, and because they're worried they're not going to get here. Leave extra time. Come early. That's a
Great.
big one.
Yeah.
So yeah, when we're doing that, and then we also we're looking to hopefully see a veteran that is not defensive, which is sometimes hard because sometimes it's an appealed claim or they're not as comfortable. I always try to say to my veterans, like, I'm here for you. I'm working on your team. I'm working to get this done for you. And so we love to see when our veterans come in, understanding that, which I know is not often the case or isn't always the case with other claims exams. So we do just like to see, like I said, on time, and that we're going to be ready and work together, and that it's going to hopefully have a good outcome.
Right. Well, thank you for sharing that. It is important, and I think most veterans understand the importance of timeliness.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say, the VA does make this process, not just the C&P exam, but the entire process difficult. And so it does create a lot of frustration
Right.
in the veterans. So, okay.
Right.
Yeah. So what would a veteran be expected to tell you that's not already in their statements? What kind of questions would you be presenting to them that you wouldn't have in front of you already?
So, specifically to hearing loss, we're going to go more into their military history of their noise exposure. We're going to go into civilian history of noise exposure, recreational history of noise. We're going to go into family history, past ear surgeries, things like that. I will also go into TBI, blast exposure, TM perforations, which are holes in your eardrum. We're finding more and more that our blast exposed veterans can have some lingering tinnitus or tinnitus, or however you want to say it. It can be said either way. And so we'll go into all of that history that's just a little more in depth than what's in the STRs or in their files, unless they've submitted those statements already. But even the statements usually aren't quite as in depth as we'll go. That's the main point for hearing in tinnitus exams that you'll go into outside of what's already in the record.
So, so what happens if you identify a veteran that may have been involved in a TBI that he's actually there just for tinnitus?
Yeah, so we are getting those claims now, and that's relatively new, probably within the last 4 or 5 years, that there are certain circumstances where tinnitus can be secondary to TBI, and they oftentimes have that coming in already. The exam looks very much the same as for a hearing loss and tinnitus. It will be the exact same tests, the exact same procedures, just a few more TBI specific questions. And if that is documented in their file at some point, we definitely want to see the TBI documentation as well, either in service or through the VA after.
Okay, great,
Mm-hmm.
great. So, does a veteran always know why they're coming in to see you?
I know that's a hard one because, like you said, the whole process to get to that point can be very confusing.
Mhm.
And sometimes with the contract companies or with the VA, the information isn't necessarily gotten out to the veteran in a timely manner. And they'll sit down and say, I don't even know why I'm here. And I'll say,
Exactly.
that's okay. That's okay. That's what we're here for. And so at the beginning of every one of my patient appointments, we go through and we say, you're here today for your claims exam for your hearing and or tinnitus, or if it's TBI related or whatever they're specifically requesting. And we go through and say exactly what we're doing, explain the process, and then ask if they have questions on that to ensure that it's a comfortable environment. But it is more common than you would think that people don't know which exam they're there for.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'm
Mhm.
very much aware of it.
Right, right.
Yeah. So if a vet is going in to be evaluated for tinnitus, why are they subjected to a hearing test?
That's a good question. So, with tinnitus, you always will have a hearing test along with that, because even if your hearing is within normal limits, or even if you're not putting in a claim for hearing, sometimes we'll find hearing loss and then the claim will come secondary that they don't even know about. Or sometimes there's been a shift in thresholds, and that is a way that we can link tinnitus to their service exposure. And so we always do a hearing test along with the tinnitus in almost all circumstances. There's a few that we don't, but almost always tinnitus only, you're also going to have a hearing test.
Okay. All right. Well,
Mhm.
that makes sense. Um, I, do you know what the breakdowns are for hearing loss as far as how the VA rates them for
So
different levels?
the
Mhm.
rating scale is confusing. I had a veteran today actually say, I have hearing loss, but I'm 0%. Why is that? And the I'm trying to think of the best way to explain it. They have a formula basically that they use that the hearing loss goes into that determines the rating. And the veterans can ask their CVSO, the service officer, for how that works or how that looks. Tinnitus is a flat rating. That one's always a flat 10% rating. Hearing loss, a 0% rating does mean you're service connected. You're not going to get a monthly check for that, but you are service connected, and hearing aids are free for life, as well as any care related to your ears. So that's an important distinction to note. And as your hearing worsens over the years, you can always put in for the increase for that.
Well, that makes sense. So even though a vet says, "Well, what's the point of even getting a 0% for my hearing loss?" That was a great point that their hearing aids are covered for life if they're
Mm-hmm.
service connected, right? So
Yep,
that was a
absolutely.
yeah, great thing.
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of people even think that. So,
Mm-hmm.
all right, Doc. Well, again, thank you for being here. Do you have any last minute advice for vets that may be coming in to see you?
No, my best advice, like I said, is come on time. Know that we're on your team, and know that there are people out there that are providers who are in your corner and that we're rooting for you, and we're hoping for the best outcome as well.
Certainly, certainly. Well, we can certainly tell that you are one of those doctors, and we appreciate what you do. And thank you much again for coming and sharing with us tonight. So,
Yeah, and thank you for your service. I appreciate it.
all right, doctor. You have
All
a great
right.
night.
You too. Bye bye.
Bye bye.